I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I didn't even confront them when I found out my wife was sleeping with my boss's son. I just kept smiling. Through the dinners, the fake apologies, the smug looks he gave me at work. He thought I was weak. He thought I didn't know. And he definitely didn't expect me to invite them both to my table, pour them wine, and hand over an envelope that would quietly end my marriage and his entire future. I used to think betrayal would feel like an explosion. Like something inside you would snap all at once, a shattering moment that left no doubt. But that's not how it felt when I found out Megan was cheating. It didn't explode. It leaked, slowly, steadily, like a crack in the foundation of a house you thought was solid. One day, you wake up and realize the walls are caving in, and you never even heard the creak. If you've ever been betrayed and made to feel powerless, this story is proof you can reclaim your control without stooping to their level. You don't need to scream to be heard. Sometimes, silence speaks the loudest. If this hit home, share your story in the comments. Let's talk about quiet strength and the power of walking away on your terms. I met Megan in college. Sophomore year. She wore red lipstick, had a laugh that turned heads, and always acted like she knew something you didn't. I was the guy who fixed people's computers for $30 and a coffee. She was studying marketing. I was studying how not to mess up the best thing that ever happened to me. We got married 5 years later. Bought a modest house. Adopted a rescue dog named Milo. I landed a job at a growing tech firm. A place full of glass walls and kombucha taps. Working under a CEO who wanted to disrupt industries, but mostly yelled on Zoom and played golf with rich friends. His name was Martin. And his son? Jason. The golden boy. Jason was the kind of guy who always walked into a room like he owned it. Slick hair, expensive shoes, a smug little tilt to his smile that made you want to slap it off his face and apologize after. He didn't work for his job. He inherited it. Head of business development, despite not understanding how email chains worked. And from the day he joined the company, I could feel it. The arrogance, the entitlement, the eyes that never quite looked you in the face. At first, it was harmless. Office politics, nepotism, the usual stuff. I kept my head down, did my job, went home to Megan. But then the late nights started. Not mine, hers. At first, she had explanations. Girls' nights. Coworker drama. You know how toxic my office is, she'd say, dropping her heels at the door and heading straight to the shower. But the stories stopped lining up. She'd say she was with Katie, except Katie posted a photo from her couch that night, alone, with her cat. She'd leave for errands and come back 3 hours later with nothing but a coffee and a weird smile. Her phone never left her side, not even in the bathroom. I didn't say anything at first. I gave her the benefit of the doubt. That's the thing about being this stable one. People assume you'll just absorb anything, that you'll be the bigger person until you disappear completely. The night I knew for sure was a Thursday. She came home late, smelling like cologne that wasn't mine. I was on the couch, watching a replay of a game I didn't care about, trying to pretend I wasn't tracking her location every 10 minutes. She kissed me on the cheek and sat beside me like nothing was wrong. That's when I noticed the smudge on her neck. Lipstick. Barely there, just under her jaw. And the way her blouse was buttoned wrong, like it had been thrown back on in a rush. I didn't confront her. I smiled, kissed her forehead, got up and took out the trash. Because I knew then. I was living with a stranger who still wore my ring, and she was hoping I'd never ask her why. It wasn't until 2 weeks later that I found the proof. Her phone lit up while she was in the shower. I didn't even need to unlock it. The preview said enough. Jason, you left your earring in my car again, winky face. Don't worry. I like trophies. I stared at the message until it blurred. She was sleeping with him. With Jason, my boss's son. The man I had to sit across from in every weekly meeting while he pitched stolen ideas and winked at interns. And now, I had to live with the fact that every time he smirked at me across the boardroom, he knew. He knew what he was doing. And he loved it. That night, I didn't sleep. I laid next to her in bed, listening to her breath, wondering how long she'd been lying. Wondering how many times she kissed me with the same mouth she used to whisper to him. I went to work the next day like nothing was wrong. Sat in a meeting with Jason while he made a joke about married life being boring. Everyone laughed. I laughed too. But something inside me clicked. I wasn't going to confront her. I wasn't going to fight him. I wasn't going to scream or cry or punch a wall. I was going to smile. And when the moment was right, I was going to bury them both, with nothing more than a signature, a dinner invitation, and a carefully timed envelope. Once you know, you can't unknow. Every smile becomes a performance. Every, "How was your day?" feels like a test you didn't agree to take. Megan kept playing her part, laughing at my jokes, asking if I wanted chicken or pasta for dinner, pretending our life was still stitched together. But I could feel the seams unraveling every time she touched her phone, every time her eyes drifted somewhere else while I was talking. I started noticing patterns I hadn't wanted to see before. How she showered the second she got home. How she wore perfume she used to save for special occasions. How she suddenly had opinions about men's watches and imported whiskey. She was preparing herself for a different life, even while she was still living in mine. And Jason? Jason stopped pretending altogether. It started subtle, an extra glance in meetings, a raised eyebrow when Megan dropped off lunch at my office, just to surprise me. He'd linger too long, ask questions that didn't need answers, smile in ways that weren't friendly. Then came the comments. "Hey, Derek," he said one afternoon, leaning against my cubicle wall like we were old buddies. "How's married life treating you? Still the same routine every night?" I smiled. "Can't complain." He nodded slowly, eyes flicking to Megan through the glass wall of the break room. "Yeah," he said. "Some people just need a little variety." He walked away before I could respond, leaving the words hanging between us like smoke. The staff party was where he crossed the line. It was one of those rooftop things, cheap wine, forced laughter, string lights trying to convince everyone that work could be fun. Megan insisted on coming. She wore a dress I'd never seen before, tight, black, and not something she usually chose for company events. I told myself it didn't matter, that it was just a dress. But the way Jason's face changed when he saw her told me everything. They didn't stand together. They didn't touch. They didn't even look at each other for more than a second at a time. But they didn't need to. There was something loud about their silence, about the way they moved around the room like magnets pretending not to pull. At one point, Jason came up behind me at the bar. "She looks good tonight," he said quietly, just loud enough for me to hear. I took a sip of my drink. "She always does." He chuckled. "Yeah, I guess some people don't know what they've got." Then he walked away and joined her by the railing, leaving me with a glass of cheap whiskey and a chest full of pressure I didn't let show. That night, I watched him laugh with her, watched her tilt her head the way she used to do with me, watched his hand brush her back like it was an accident, and I realized something important. He wasn't just sleeping with my wife. He wanted me to know. He wanted to feel powerful, untouchable, like he could walk into my life, take what he wanted, and leave me smiling while he did it. And for a while, he was right. But I had something he didn't expect. I had time. I started paying closer attention at work. Not to him, to the numbers, to the way invoices moved, to the way certain accounts were approved faster than others, to how certain vendor contracts kept landing on Jason's desk, even though they weren't part of his department. I'd worked there long enough to know when something felt off. And suddenly, things felt very off. One night, after Megan fell asleep beside me, her phone buzzing quietly on the nightstand, I sat at my desk and pulled up old files. Archived reports, expense accounts, approval chains. I didn't know exactly what I was looking for yet, but I knew I'd find it. And I did. Small inconsistencies at first. Duplicate payments. Rounded numbers. Vendors that didn't exist outside of a P.O. box. It wasn't obvious. It wasn't sloppy. But it was wrong. Jason wasn't just arrogant. He was careless. And while he thought he was playing me, I had already started playing him. I planned it like a wedding proposal. Carefully, quietly, with every detail rehearsed so no one saw it coming. It started with a text to Megan on a Tuesday, thinking we should have a dinner, just us and Jason. "I feel like things have been off lately. Let's make it nice. Reset a bit." She replied in under a minute. "That's unexpected. But okay. That might be good." She didn't ask why Jason. That said enough. I knew she'd assume I was trying to make peace. Maybe that I'd finally accepted things weren't going to change. Maybe she thought I wanted to be friends with the man sleeping with my wife. Let her think that. I set the table myself. Cooked steaks, medium rare, Jason's favorite. Opened the bottle of wine Megan gave me on our 5th anniversary. Set out candles. Real napkins. I wanted the whole thing to feel intimate. Safe. Predictable. When they arrived, together, of course, Megan looked beautiful, all effort and soft touches. Jason wore a navy jacket and that smug grin like it was tailored. He walked in like he owned the house. He didn't realize it was the last time he'd ever feel that way. Wow, Megan said, glancing at the table. You really went all out. I wanted it to feel right, I said. Like old times. We sat, ate, drank, talked about work, about plans. Jason made some veiled joke about rising through the company the unconventional way. Megan laughed too hard. I nodded like I didn't hear the double meaning. I waited until dessert. Chocolate lava cake, store-bought, but they didn't need to know that. That's when I pulled out the envelope. It was thick, crisp, tucked beside my chair the whole evening like a loaded gun. What's that? Megan asked, reaching for her glass. I have something for you both, I said. Figured since this was a special evening, I'd make it official. Jason stiffened slightly. Megan looked confused, but not concerned, yet. I slid the envelope across the table, right between them. She opened it. Slowly. The first page? Divorce papers. Filed, signed, dated. Her face went still. Not shocked, just cold. She looked up at me. Derek. Keep going, I said. Behind the papers were printouts, spreadsheets, expense reports, internal documents I'd been gathering for weeks. Some highlighted, some with handwritten notes. Each one a quiet little landmine, and Jason's name was all over them. Vendor kickbacks, false invoices, unauthorized transfers. I wasn't sure at first, I said, voice calm. But then I started seeing the patterns. Small, sloppy, not enough to raise alarms, unless someone knew where to look. So I looked. Jason reached for the papers, but I already had my phone out. Don't bother, I said. They've already been sent. CFO, HR, legal. A few board members too. It's all backed up in the cloud. Your father will see it in the morning. You've got no idea what you're doing, Jason snapped, his voice cracking. This won't hold up. Oh, it will, I said. See, I've been working here long enough to know the systems better than you ever did. And I made sure every piece of evidence ties back to your logins, your approvals, your edits. I didn't touch anything. I just watched. Megan looked at him, realization dawning in her eyes like a slow sunrise. You told me none of this was real, she whispered. Jason stood, tossing his napkin aside. This is a setup. No, I said, standing too. This is the part where you both realize the only person who's been quiet long enough to be underestimated isn't stupid. Megan stared at me, stunned. Maybe heartbroken. Maybe just embarrassed. You were planning this the whole time? No, I said. Just since the day I realized neither of you had the decency to lie well. Jason tried to say something else, but I held up my hand. You should go. He hesitated. Megan stood up, grabbed her purse slowly, like it weighed 100 pounds. You don't have to do this, she said quietly. We can talk. We did talk, I said, while you were screwing my boss's son. She flinched. Jason glared, and I smiled. They left in silence. No dramatic exits. No yelling. Just two people who thought they had all the control walking out of a house they no longer had a key to. I cleared the table, washed the dishes, finished the wine. And when I finally sat down, alone, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. The silence the next morning was louder than any explosion. No calls. No texts. Just a calendar notification, 9 a.m. All hands meeting, executive floor, mandatory. I showed up early. Didn't dress up. I wore the same navy sweater I wore when I signed the divorce papers. Not out of spite. Just because I liked it. And I wanted to feel like myself walking into this fire. Not the man they thought they could manipulate. The elevator ride was tense. A few people avoided my eyes. A couple gave me that nod of respect that says, you did something, and I'm not sure if I'm supposed to admire it or be scared of you. I didn't mind either way. Jason wasn't there. My boss, Martin, stood at the head of the long table. Jaw tight, hands clasped. When the door closed, he looked at me first. Derek, he said, voice flat. Would you like to say something before I begin? I shook my head. He nodded once, then began talking about discrepancies and serious internal concerns. Legal words. Boardroom words. He didn't say Jason's name outright, but he didn't have to. Everyone knew. Jason had been pulled from all projects. His access revoked. His office sealed. Martin didn't look at me again. But someone else did. Carla, one of the senior VPs. She gave me a look that wasn't pity. It was something closer to acknowledgement. Like she'd seen men like Jason win too many times, and watching one of them finally fall was a kind of justice. After the meeting, I went back to my office. There was a message waiting. Not from HR. Not from Martin. From Megan. We need to talk. Please. I ignored it. She showed up that night. Didn't even knock at first. Just stood on the porch like she didn't know whether she still had the right. Eventually, she rang the bell. I opened the door, leaned against the frame. Said nothing. Her face was different now. Not cold. Not smug. Just tired. Like someone who'd realized the damage she'd done wasn't just a mistake. It was permanent. Can I come in? She asked. No. She nodded, like she expected that. Then handed me a box. Inside, my watch, my spare keys, the photo of us from our second anniversary trip that used to hang above her desk. She bit her lip. I didn't think it would get this bad. You didn't think at all, I said. You just wanted what you wanted. You thought I'd stay quiet forever. She blinked fast. I didn't mean to fall out of love with you. I'm not sure you ever were, I said. But that's not what this is about anymore. She flinched. I didn't know about Jason's fraud. I believe you. That surprised her. I don't think you're cruel, Megan, I added. Just careless. You wanted excitement. He wanted control. And I was the easiest one to walk over. I didn't mean to walk over you. But you did. She looked down. What happens now? Now, I said. You go live your life. And I live mine. She nodded. Stepped back. He's gone, you know. Good. He left the city yesterday. His dad won't talk to him. Not my problem. She hesitated one more moment, like she wanted me to say something kind. Something forgiving. Something that gave her hope she could still be the person I used to believe she was. But I didn't. Because that man, the one who gave her the benefit of the doubt, who bent over backwards to keep the peace while his dignity bled out, he was gone. And the one who replaced him had finally learned how to be quiet and powerful at the same time. She turned and walked to her car. I didn't watch her leave. I just closed the door. Jason didn't go out with a bang. He slipped out like a ghost. One day he was in meetings, and the next, his nameplate was gone, his desk emptied overnight. HR wouldn't confirm anything, but whispers flew fast and thick. He was on leave, under review, relocating, burned out. Take your pick. Everyone had a theory, but I knew the truth. Jason wasn't burned out. He was burned. Plain and simple. And his father? He'd made a quiet call to legal the same day he found out. The man might have loved his son, but he loved the company more. And fraud. That kind of thing didn't get forgiven. Not when investors were involved. Within 2 weeks, Jason was gone. Deleted his socials. No forwarding address. Someone said he went to Miami. Someone else said Belize. I didn't care. He could run wherever he wanted. The evidence would follow if it needed to. But what really surprised me was Megan. She unraveled slowly. Not loudly. Not all at once. Just piece by piece. Like someone realizing the life raft they were clinging to was made of paper. First, she lost the apartment. It was in his name. Then came the job. Her company caught wind of the drama, and even though she didn't do anything illegal, guilt by association is a real thing. People stop replying to emails. Opportunities dry up. She tried freelance work, but without Jason's connections, no one picked up the phone. Her Instagram went quiet. No more wine selfies. No more brunches with cryptic captions like, "Sometimes, you have to choose yourself." I heard from a mutual friend that she moved back in with her sister across town. Started taking the bus. Cut her hair short. Changed gyms. Switched banks. She was rebuilding. Alone. I never responded to the messages. There were 4 of them. 1 angry. 2 sad. The last one just said, "I made a mistake. I didn't think I'd lose everything." I read it twice. Then archived it. Not because I wanted to punish her, but because I had nothing left to say. The day the divorce finalized, I stood outside the courthouse, holding the stamped papers like they weighed nothing. People around me were crying, hugging, yelling on their phones. Me? I just stood there. Free. I walked to a diner I liked. Sat in a booth. Ordered coffee and a burger. No music. No distractions. Just the comfort of knowing no one could take anything from me that I hadn't already given away. Mike, my closest friend, called that night. You hear from her? He asked. Yeah, I said. You reply? No. Good. We didn't talk about it much after that. He wasn't the type to dwell. He just kept showing up. Brought over takeout. Invited me to games. Sent dumb memes when the office gossip got too heavy. And that was more healing than any therapy session could have been. Just having someone in your corner who didn't need you to explain why you were done being patient. What people never talk about is how quiet peace feels after chaos. It's not celebratory. It's not dramatic. It's a slow unfurling, like your shoulders finally drop after months of being pulled to your ears. One night, I pulled out the photo albums from the closet. Looked at the early years, college, the honeymoon, birthdays. There was real love there once. Or at least something that looked enough like it to fool me. I didn't rip up the photos. I just closed the album, put it back on the shelf, and left it there. People kept waiting for me to crack. I could see it in their faces. The co-workers who walked on eggshells, the relatives who called a little too often, the neighbors who smiled too carefully. They thought I was bottling something, that I'd eventually scream, or cry, or punch a wall when it finally hit me. My wife had betrayed me, my boss's son had humiliated me, and my life as I knew it had been ripped apart. But the truth is, I didn't explode. I evolved. The anger came, sure, but it passed. Because after a certain point, when someone hurts you that deeply, they stop feeling real. They become a version of themselves frozen in the last lie they told. And I stopped giving power to people who lied to my face with a straight smile and perfume on their collar. I didn't need a dramatic breakdown to prove I was human. I needed silence. Routine. Something steady after all that chaos. So I built a new life in the small, deliberate ways no one posts about. I got a new apartment. Smaller, quieter. No shared furniture, no ghosts in the walls. I kept things minimal. Clean counters. Books I loved. Coffee mugs that were only mine. I bought a better couch, not out of pettiness, but because I deserved one that didn't remind me of arguments and cold shoulders. I took early morning walks. Joined a boxing gym, not to fight, just to move. I let my muscles remember that they were made for more than absorbing disappointment. I went back to the office like nothing happened. Martin never brought up Jason. We both understood that certain names no longer needed to be spoken aloud. My coworkers watched me with quiet respect. Not because I made a scene, but because I hadn't. And somehow, that made it all louder. Once, Carla from marketing caught me in the break room and said, "You know, if it were me, I would have burned it all down." I smiled. I thought about it. She raised an eyebrow. "Why didn't you?" I took a sip of coffee. Because I didn't want to set fire to something that wasn't even worth the match. That's what they never tell you. Sometimes the best revenge is letting people live with their own choices. Letting them carry the weight of what they did without giving them the satisfaction of seeing it break you. Megan never wrote again. Jason never resurfaced. And I never needed them to. There was a peace in not needing closure from the people who broke you. A kind of quiet power in realizing you can move forward without dragging their mess behind you. I don't regret loving Megan. I regret thinking love meant sacrificing myself. I regret how long I tried to save something that wasn't drowning. It was already dead. I regret not seeing the signs sooner. But I don't regret the ending. Because I walked away on my own 2 feet. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I didn't make it easy for them. And I didn't make it messy, either. I just smiled through dinner, handed her the envelope, and let them both see the one thing they never expected from me. Strength. Not the loud kind. The kind that stands still when everything else falls apart. If you've ever held it together while your world unraveled. This story is for you. Not every betrayal needs a breakdown. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is not explode. Just walk away, with your dignity, your plan, and your peace. If this story resonated with you, share your experience in the comments and subscribe to this channel. Quiet strength deserves to be heard.